To be considered in the top 1% of net worth in the world, you need at least $870,000 in your bank account. To join the more exclusive 0.1% club, you should have a net worth that exceeds $19 million. Quite impressive, but still nothing compared to the much more ultra-exclusive society that we are here to discuss today. What we are actually interested in is the lives of the 0.0001%, otherwise known as billionaires. Billionaires are a bit different than regular rich people. In fact, they are several orders of magnitude different in terms of their wealth, influence, and power. It really just comes down to perspective, as there are 1,000 million in 1 billion. Here is an example of the literal difference between $1 million and $1 billion. If you stacked up $1 million in $100 bills, it would reach about 3 feet tall, or the height of a kitchen counter. Meanwhile, $1 billion stacked up in $100 bills reaches over a half-mile tall, which is higher than the world's tallest building. How many of these billionaires currently exist? According to the Forbes Billionaire list, there are roughly 2,700 billionaires across the globe today. Another remarkable fact: the top 400 richest Americans own more than the bottom 60% of all Americans. 400 individuals own more assets than the poorest 200 million Americans combined. But we're not here to talk about inequalities today. Instead, we want to take a look into the lives of the ultra-rich and reveal the true scale of their immense wealth in a way that you have never thought of before. You might think that you understand what it means to be rich. It probably entails someone who owns a huge mansion on a sprawling estate with a garage full of luxury cars. They go out to fancy restaurants and clubs and charter their private jet to exotic locations across the globe. But that portrait of a rich person really depends on the level of wealth in question. $1 million ain't worth what it used to be, and therefore, the average millionaire is probably not as wealthy as you think. For instance, a private jet usually costs at least $2 million to buy, and another $500,000 for annual maintenance, storage, and fuel. Therefore, we would be surprised to see anyone with a net worth of under $20 million that own their own jet. But billionaires, they are in a completely different stratosphere. There is almost no material object that these excessively wealthy folks cannot buy. There are also other hidden layers of their lifestyle that are rarely spoken about, but cost a considerable amount of their resources as well. For billionaires, their most valuable assets turn out to be time and safety. Time is one of the few things that money cannot buy, but there are certainly ways that billionaires have found to optimize their time through the use of their money. They employ a whole support staff that provides them with time through their services. So, billionaires never spend time cooking, cleaning, or even shopping. There is never any standing in line or waiting for anything. All of this time saved allows them to free up their day so they can focus on the bigger picture. Of course, this team of assistants and servants does not come cheap. It is estimated that the salaries of an average billionaire's full support staff comes out to an annual cost of $1 to $2 million. For safety, billionaires are almost obliged to hire a private security force since their wealth makes them a large target for potential danger. Virtually every billionaire employs a team of security personnel to guard them 24/7. There have even been reports of them using ex-Navy SEALs as well as sophisticated technology, including robots, to help keep them safe. As expected, all of this defense costs money. It was reported that Mark Zuckerberg spends over $7 million on a personal security detail every year. It is clear that there is quite a divide between the lifestyle of a modern millionaire versus that of a billionaire. What is the true scale of wealth when it comes to billionaires then? Well, it all comes down to context. The average person works full-time and earns about $50,000 per year. They might have some savings, but for this example, we will assume that they have a minimum net worth outside of their annual income. Meanwhile, most billionaires don't actually work for a salary, so we will use the value of their net worth to compare them against others. In this scenario then, the billionaire who is worth $1 billion is 20,000 times more wealthy than the person who earns $50,000 a year. Therefore, from the billionaire's perspective, everything feels like it costs about 20,000 times less to them versus the normal person. That's possible since most common luxury goods don't really get more expensive. Sure, there are different levels of opulence, which we will also speak about later on, but the price of most items don't really scale past a certain point. A new Ferrari is still priced at $300,000 for both you and for Elon Musk as well. Even the most expensive properties and real estate don't go for much more than $200 million. Jeff Bezos paid $165 million for his Beverly Hills mansion, while the primary property for Bill Gates is estimated to be valued at just $130 million. Of course, tycoons like these likely own multiple properties across the globe, but the fact remains that the cost of most goods don't scale to the heights of billionaires. That makes their purchases 20,000 times less impactful to their wealth compared to the rest of us. Let's take a look at some examples of this absurd scale of excess, and also examine how a billionaire's lifestyle dwarfs even the most lavish of millionaires. Let's start with housing. A well-off millionaire may own a large mansion in a nice gated community, but a billionaire can actually buy the whole gated community. In fact, there have been numerous stories of billionaires scooping up a whole street so they can house their family with some extra privacy. How can they justify these costs? Well, to them, a $1 million house feels like spending just $50 based on their proportion of wealth versus an average Joe. Of course, billionaires likely own an estate worth $100 million or more, as well as multiple other extremely high-value properties around the world, which is not what most millionaires can afford. An American billionaire could own a real estate portfolio that includes a penthouse overlooking Manhattan, an estate in Los Angeles, a ski lodge in Aspen, a beach home in the Hamptons, along with some smaller properties across Europe and Asia. You can quickly see that these billionaires are in a different league than regular millionaires. Here's another interesting fact. Property tax on a $100 million home is likely to be $1 or $2 million a year. That comes out to about $2,000 to $3,000 per day just on taxes. That is more than most people pay for their monthly rent. Another example we will look at is travel. A millionaire can likely afford to fly first class and probably spend $10,000 on a ticket for each trip. To a billionaire, though, the cost of that ticket would feel like just 50 cents per flight. So, billionaires take it up a notch and go for their own private jet. Why go through the hassle of passing through security and waiting to board the plane when you could just drive up to the tarmac at the moment you feel like? The average new jet costs about $30 million, which is just $1,500 to a billionaire, and is an easily justified cost that saves them time and offers direct convenience. What about hotel options? For millionaires, they could probably afford the best 5-star hotel for their 6 weeks of vacation throughout the year. They may even splurge on the penthouse suite for $5,000 a night here and there. But for a billionaire, a 5-star accommodation is not even a question. In fact, they may seek out the more rare 6- and 7-star hotels to stay at. The penthouse suite is also the bare minimum as well, since it would only feel like paying 25 cents a night to them. At those rates, they could stay 200,000 nights, which comes out to 548 years. So, billionaires usually spend a bit more than millionaires in this case as well. Instead of just renting one room, they rent the whole floor. They may even reserve multiple floors to allow for their staff and security to join them. They could also do this for months at a time, even during peak travel seasons. How about cars? A millionaire might own 1 or 2 exotic cars to use on the weekend, but a billionaire likely has a garage full of them, at each of their properties too. That's easy to manage when a new $300K Lamborghini feels like spending $15 to a billionaire. There's also the topic of support staff. A millionaire might splurge and hire a housekeeper or a part-time nanny. But a billionaire has the means to cover virtually every part of their life with a team of professionals. On the staff of an average billionaire, you can usually find a housekeeping crew, a private chef, possibly with a Michelin star, a few live-in nannies, a personal driver and airline pilot, multiple landscapers, the previously mentioned security staff, a personal trainer, personal assistants, and the nation's top legal team always on retainer. Like we mentioned earlier, this team can cost up to $2 million a year, but that comes out to what feels like $100 annually to a billionaire. There are differences in scale when it comes to the experiences between millionaires and billionaires as well. For millionaires, they might get lucky and secure some backstage passes to a concert of their favorite artist. But billionaires, they have the resources and the clout to arrange their own private concert at the location of their choice. Same for sporting events. Instead of securing front row tickets, billionaires can likely secure a connection with the team's owner and join them in their luxury box after entering the stadium through the players-only entrance without ever waiting at all. Speaking of connections, a major way millionaires and billionaires differ is based on their access and ability to influence other major players in the world. Regular millionaires might know a few business directors and local politicians, but that is nothing compared to a billionaire's circle of acquaintances. When you have a sizable amount of wealth, people start seeking you out and want to listen to you. It is not unusual for billionaires to be well connected with CEOs, Hollywood actors, sports stars, governors, presidents, and even royal families. That also gives them the ability to access major events like the Cannes Film Festival or to lobby governments for regulations to be in their favor. If you add up the cost of all of these extravagances, it comes out to an average of $134,000 per day. If you multiply that by 365 days, that comes out to almost $49 million a year. At this point, you might be thinking, if a person has $1 billion and spends $49 million of it a year, that lifestyle will only last 20 years. But that wouldn't be how a billionaire thinks. If they use up $49 million in 1 year, the remaining $951 million doesn't just sit around in their vaults. Instead, the large majority of it is out there making even more money. A billionaire's financial advisor likely has their assets invested in a mix of stocks, bonds, hedge funds, private equity, real estate, and cryptocurrencies that earn them a healthy return every year. In fact, they just need an annual return of roughly 5% to make back the $49 million they have spent throughout the year. Therefore, they could spend $49 million every year and, with the right blend of investments, generate the same amount back, allowing them to live this type of lifestyle indefinitely. Billionaires sure do sound like they live a dream life. They can purchase an unlimited amount of material goods and get to experience events that you or I could not access even if we had the money. But in reality, nobody has it all. Billionaires can never live a normal life. They can't just hop into McDonald's when they have a craving or even leave their house without being harassed. They will also never know the true value of something earned. When you have everything, then nothing is exciting anymore. Billionaires even get bored. They then start to look for hobbies or passions that seem ill-fated to the rest of us. They go out and buy companies that have no connection to the rest of their business or fund extravagant projects like going into space. A lot of billionaire heroes live long enough to even become a villain. But that's what happens when you have nothing but time and money on your hands. While we shouldn't feel bad for these billionaire business people, we shouldn't feel so bad about ourselves either. There is something to be said about the things that money cannot buy. The age-old adage of money not being able to buy happiness is still true. There is a distinct difference between art that you create versus a painting that you just buy. The same with memories of spending time with your parents when you were young as opposed to being raised by a nanny. Or the feeling of earning something after a long journey rather than taking a shortcut to quickly obtain it. It turns out that we all have the ability to enjoy emotions and experiences that make life rich and fulfilling regardless of the size of our bank account. At the end of the day, it still comes down to perspective, but having a balanced one that is not just about money can make all the difference. For the non-billionaires out there, what do you think about this stunning disparity of scale? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, please subscribe to this channel to continue to get a fresh perspective on these business-type topics. We appreciate your support and would like to thank you for watching.